Welcome to this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Bable Jonathan. The United Nations International Children's Fund, UNICEF, calls for urgent intervention of men and women of goodwill to rescue persons who are suffering and dying as a result of the deepening Anglophone crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. And security forces have seized an important consignment of illegal drugs imported into the country through the borders or the maritime route, notably in the southwest region of the country from neighboring Nigeria. Those were our top stories. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us in this edition of the news. The United Nations International Children's Fund, UNICEF, says that at least 1.3 million people are in dire need of help in the two Anglophone regions of the country, and the organ of the United Nations indicates that there is need for over 150 billion francs CFA to improve on the deplorable and even deadly living conditions of internally displaced persons or persons displaced by the Anglophone crisis and war victims. Details in this report by Smanjik Gabriel.
According to the report published by the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF, concerning the crisis in the two English-speaking regions, there are 1.3 million people who need help in the Anglophone regions. 444,213 people are internally displaced, while 32,000 people have now taken the status of refugees and residing in neighboring Nigeria, with 350,000 people without shelters and in need. Amongst the population in problem are more than 24,000 women and 3,000 children who are very vulnerable due to the lack of food and adequate health care. The crisis, which has recorded the highest rate of violence this past month, has witnessed the increase in need of food and health aid 31% in 2019 as compared to 2018, causing 111,000 children of less than 5 years to suffer from malnutrition due to the lack of access way to give medical attention to these internally displaced persons. UNICEF is worried over the possible rise in the infection of HIV and AIDS. On the educational sector, 80% of students have dropped out of school. 3,700 children who are without families. Meanwhile, 280,000 are without counseling after there have been witnesses to gruesome killings. Because most are out of school, a good number of them have joined the armed groups, while the girls are now victims of forced sexual activities, unplanned marriages, and unwanted pregnancies. Today, the humanitarian need is more highly needed and much funding is expected, with over 150 billion francs CFA necessary to satisfy the needs of these war victims. Just about 20 billion francs CFA is available, which implies there is a need for at least 80% of funds left. Government officials had debunked the figures published by international organizations recently, claiming that they have inflated them. Apart from the differences in the figures from both institutions, UNICEF has blamed the human and material damages happening in the northwest and southwest region on both the government and separatist fighters.
And top authorities of the Presbyterian Church of Cameroon, the PCC, say the Anglophone crisis has crippled activities of the church, notably in the educational sector. The moderator of the PCC, Right Reverend Funky Samuel Foba, was speaking yesterday here in Douala during the celebration of Palm Sunday at Presbyterian Church, Bassa Congregation. Smanjik Gabriel once more has the details.
Parti de Boya où il réside pour honorer l'invitation de la paroisse Douala Bassa de la Presbyterian Church in Cameroon. Le révérend
Smart Njikangebre with that report on the consequences of the Anglophone crisis on activities of the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon with regards to the functioning of the church and of course the activities of the church in the educational sector, and the activities have been paralyzed by the deepening Anglophone crisis. And the moderator of the PCC, Right Reverend Funky Samuel Foba, was highlighting the devastating consequences of the Anglophone crisis on the Presbyterian Church during the celebration of Palm Sunday at the Bassa congregation of the Presbyterian Church here in Douala. That was yesterday. Smart Jikan Gabriel has more. We're not going to have that report in this newscast concerning the Presbyterian Church. We'll be coming back to that subsequently. Now we're going to talk about the seizure of an important consignment of contraband drugs by security forces here in the economic capital, Douala. And of course, the authorities, as I indicated earlier, have seized an important consignment of illegal drugs containing over 347,800 tablets of contraband drugs that has been seized by security forces. And the drugs were seized during a routine control led by the coordinator of Zone 1 of the Fight Against Illegal Trade Authority, Amugu Ona Philemon, and the Zonal Chief of Operations, Kwechem Uk Syriac, and they seized the contraband goods yesterday here in Aqua. The illegal drugs were imported from Nigeria through the maritime route to Tico in the southwest region of the country, and they were hidden among or in the midst of other goods, including computers. Now we come back to Smart Jikan Gabriel with the report on the consequences of the Anglophone crisis on activities of the Presbyterian Church, notably in the educational sector. On to something else. Insecurity continues rising, notably in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala, and pharmacies have become a target for alleged bandits. And between mid-March and of course mid-April 2019, that's a period of a time frame of 1 month, over 6 pharmacies have been attacked in different parts of the city of Douala. And the attackers, according to officials of the pharmacies that have been attacked this far, had the same modus operandi. They came as clients or pretended to be clients before taking the personnel on duty hostage, and then before making away with huge sums of money. That is over 6 pharmacies attacked between mid-March and mid-April 2019. Now we're going to talk about the problem of difficult access to decent housing for many Cameroonians in the big cities as well as in the hinterlands. Many Cameroonians are living in very deplorable and difficult conditions. This issue was on the table today during a meeting notably organized by the National Network of Inhabitants of Cameroon. It took place today here in Douala. We have details in this report by Fomi Armstrong Sander.
Access to decent housing remains a difficult equation to solve by public stakeholders and Cameroonians, especially those living in major cities. The problem is complex and has, among other factors, difficult access to land titles, difficulties to access low-cost decent houses by low-income Cameroonians, low income, poor town planning and repeated demolition exercises.
people face difficulty to access of land, but also to access decent houses. And decent housing is not just the fact to have a housing to live. It's also the fact to have the housing in the environment that you have access to water, you have access to education, you have access to social basic social services that are not really in general available in poor neighborhood.
Faced with these challenges, the government of Cameroon has for over the years introduced the provision of low-cost houses, which observers say has paradoxically only benefited the rich in Cameroon. One of the major factors that mobilized the national network of inhabitants of Cameroon.
We launched this initiative of the Triennale of Inhabitants. That is a forum bringing together stakeholders working in the cities to fund, to diagnostic and also to find the best solutions that can help municipalities, civil society organizations, grassroots organizations, and the state to give, to fund and to implement the solution that can empower people and enable them to get access to social and decent house in Cameroon.
A network which has succeeded to mediate between landowners and inhabitants in some major land dispute cases across Cameroon.
We succeed, for example, in Yaoundé to make the mediation between the owner of the land and the people that occupy the land. And that mediation brings them together to find a solution that make them secure the occupation. The same thing we did something in Mokolo neighborhood in Yaoundé also.
The National Network of Inhabitants of Cameroon, together with civil society actors and public sector representatives currently meeting in Douala, have as objective to adopt strategies to favor the provision of 5 million decent houses to Cameroonians by 2035.
And we asked a member of the National Network of Inhabitants of Cameroon, Jules Dumas Ngebu, how they intend to achieve the objective of providing decent housing facilities to over 5 million Cameroonians by 2035. And this is what he said.
We intend to do this by mobilizing all the stakeholders. That's the first thing. That means civil societies, private sectors, and government together. And if those three actors work together, they can adopt a policy, a social housing policy that can enable them to be each other complement in an objective to give housing to the poor. That is the first thing. Second thing, we have to organize and structure social housing cooperative in the country around of Cameroon, like Mali, like Senegal, like Gabon, like Rwanda. Social housing are products that are achieved also with a contribution of social cooperative. But in Cameroon, those cooperatives are not operational. There are some ones that have been created since 2010, but they are not operational because of the fact that they have not support from the state. They have no support from the cities, local councils, and since they lack those two support, people cannot accept to invest their money in the social cooperative without the state guarantee. So we have to work to make that the framework of social housing in Cameroon be improved by the government.
And the National Gendarmerie is stepping up the fight against recalcitrant behaviors on highways across the country, which has been identified as one of the major causes of the high rate of accidents recorded on highways across the country. And many vehicles have been impounded as the operation seeks to limit the number of accidents occurring on highways in Cameroon. Innocent Azi.
Elevated rates of road accidents on the Douala-Bafoussam highway are expected to one day clock 0%. National Gendarmerie officials who have embarked on a road safety campaign, particularly this period of school resumption, say they will slowly but surely attain their objectives.
Ils sont assez récalcitrants, mais la gendarmerie a pris des engagements depuis une dizaine d'années.
Reason being that road users remain recalcitrant as they overload, drive clandestinely, overspeed, ignore road signs, drive vehicles in bad states with finished tires.
Roughly overtaken, and even many cases of overloaded car either by passengers or by luggages. We have also registered many cases of poorly fixed luggages that can be responsible of many cases of accidents, and those cases have been seriously sanctioned. Cars have been impounded.
This bus, for instance, belonging to the Tresor Interurban Transport Agency, has been impounded for clandestine operation. Its passengers are not duly registered by the agency.
Et vous allez répondre donc.
Nous avions les enfants. Ils ont pris la carte d'identité pour nous enregistrer, non? Quand nous avions payé. J'ai vu comment ils...
They say they registered at the agency in Bafoussam, but their names, according to gendarmes, are not on an official list for security reasons. An act which is forbidden in road safety operation. What was presented by the driver was termed fake.
C'est un faux document, non? Non, on ne confond pas avec la date.
On ne peut même pas vous identifier parce que vous n'êtes nulle part sur ce papier.
Though the ignorant passengers pleaded, gendarmes ordered the driver to refund their money or ensure they are transferred in another bus of the agency.
Vous appelez qu'il transporte un autre véhicule, vous rancez un autre manifeste, il continue le voyage.
Sanctions have been clearly defined to be meted on such recalcitrant road users.
We don't tolerate any misbehavior, and all the misbehaviors are seriously sanctioned, either by impounding the cars, or either by fines, or either by sending those defaulters before the prosecutor.
Though challenges are enormous, rates of accidents has dropped to 40% since start of the road safety control. Expectation is to better off in the coming days.
Out of Cameroon, organizers of mass protests in the Sudan have said they want the full dismantling of what has been qualified as the deep state left behind by ousted leader Omar al-Bashir, and a spokesperson said leaders of the past regime should be put on trial. And Mr. Bashir was toppled by the army last week after 30 years in power, and the military council has pledged elections in 2 years, so a 2-year time. And of course, but protesters remain camped outside the army headquarters in the country's capital, Khartoum, demanding a civilian administration. That's it for the first part of this newscast. Talking Point is coming up next. We're receiving a civil society leader and writer, Lapana Tasha Mama. You welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Babila. It's my pleasure being here again.
All right, we're going to be talking about the first 100 days of the Joseph John Gute government appointed by the President of the Republic of Cameroon. In 100 days, what are some of the things that have caught your interest in a particular way with regards to what this government has been doing so far, from the Prime Minister down to the other members of government?
Well, with Joseph John Gute, I will first of all appreciate him for taking a very drastic decision. For example, that of banning the minister from going frequently out of the country. That is the first thing that interests me in him, and then I believe he is having an objective that can better the situation in this country.
But some observers think that that's not enough to curb state expenditures.
That is not enough, but there is a saying that every state you have to take one after another. And then he has started the first step, in which I believe in it. But if he is just taking that step of refusing them from not going out of the country frequently because he wants to reduce, it's not the main reason behind it. To me, is not just reducing the state budget, but also it will come as a lesson to many of us, and then it will also cut down corruption, because many people have taken an advantage of that because of the luxurious behavior of the ministers here in Cameroon, the directors, luxurious reception, hotels that have been attending. Those are hidden causes of corruption that many people are pushed within them to maybe wish to be at that higher position in order to enjoy certain things. And then they, knowing our country very well, the only method they can use in order to reach there is through corruption, by selling their voting rights, by joining popular political party, by forcing others to say their voting right. And those are the things. Just that one state by him means a lot to me, because it's not just cutting down the state budget, it's also to make us to understand that minister, director are also under rules and regulation.
Now, with regards to the Anglophone crisis, the actions of Joseph John Kuti up till now, do they make any impact to you?
I hope with regarding the Anglophone problems, I believe that all ministers, from the Prime Minister, they have a common agenda that are following, and that is the agenda of the President. And I believe they are afraid to go above the agenda. Joseph John Kuti, you look at him, you believe that he have the zeal in order to help the Anglophone out of this problem, because he has met with the chiefs of the southwest and the northwest region, meaning he's having a good intention toward them, but he has to follow an agenda of, because if you look at critically, since the Anglophone problem started, all of them, all the ministers, they are talking according to the will of the President.
Now, with regards to talking about the Minister of Public Health, is one of the ministers or the newcomers in government who have come up to the forefront with some actions that were considered as remarkable by some observers, notably the sacking of the director of the Dedo District Hospital after the death of the student of the Government Bilingual High School who was stabbed to death by his friend. Do you think this minister is making the difference?
Yeah, the minister is making a difference. I appreciated him a lot with that decisions taken, because our nurses, our doctors in the hospital, they are just like they're already used to a dead body, and then each time you come to the hospital, the only comfort they can give you is that you are not the first person to die. So don't be afraid, or don't worry yourself, don't push them, don't force them, don't do this. So the minister has taken a very correct decision, and I believe that if that is not just to show to the people that there is what is there, and then they put it in maybe applied in other hospital, I believe that it would better the life of the Cameroonian. Because to me, being ill and then moving to the hospital, I always go with a doubting mind, because I don't know who is treating me. Even the kind of treatment they're giving you, they don't welcome to you, especially in government hospital. Right. So coming with this kind of attitude, this kind of approach, I believe something will come behind it.
Now, what about the Minister of Secondary Education, Professor Nalova Lyonga, who preferred to stay in Yaoundé at the time a student was stabbed to death in Government Bilingual High School, Dedo, and only comes visiting about 2 weeks later?
Well, I listened to the Minister of Secondary Education. I was really surprised with one issue, because when school started, I quite remember a law was given that only 60 students should be in a class. And then I heard the minister asking the teacher how many students are in this class, and the teachers were saying in front of the minister that there are 120 students per class. And then with the minister, I believe that the Ministry of Secondary Education is not a Ministry of Basic Education, and then the government of Cameroon have looked critically into it and discovered that the main strategy to control the people of Cameroon is passing through the educational sector, making the Cameroonian not well educated. And that is one of their strategy, because if you look all the educational strategies, they are not favorable. And then because you cannot take a decision, you will not, a child they will start a child in the house, in school, and then you stay 1 week after, even after the burial, before appearing. Minister of Public Health did it very well. And then I believe if he can move from one hospital to another to remove those who are not doctors or nurses out of the hospital, our hospitals will be okay in Cameroon, because they have demonstrated something, because there is something called professionalism, and professionalism is an individual conduct at work. And then you look at the conduct of the other nurses, especially that of the Daidu Hospital, those who demonstrated that event by snapping and taking pictures of somebody dying, not instead of treating the person. Those are the conducts that they have to move from one hospital to another, not by announcing, because when they announce by coming, everybody will adjust, by doing a surprise visit always, and then they will catch up all those people.
All right, in a short while, you're going to give us your own solution to this problem of rising violence and insecurity in schools. But before that, are there other ministers, other members of the John Gute government who did something remarkable during these first 100 days, the Minister of Territorial Administration, Communication, and others and so on?
Well, I also wish to appreciate the Minister of Vocational Training, because he's so vibrant for this 100 days, moving from one place to another. And then whether he's his spirit that is living from the Ministry of Communication, I don't know, but if he keeps on like that, many vocational training school, because that is why we are looking up to, that our children should be trained to have skill, not just head knowledge. And then I also wish to say the strategies of some ministers is that like they are struggling to show themselves, like the Minister of Territorial Administration. There are some certain pertinent issue in the country that he has to look up to, even the issue of the CRM. He has to look into it critically, because I make mention of a opposition's party has not been existing in Cameroon, and if one is coming up to tell the government that there is something wrong here, they should look at what is wrong before punishing the party.
All right. Now, you told me earlier that you have an effective or efficient solution to the problem of rising insecurity and violence in school.
Yeah.
What is that solution?
With an educational system, there are 5 people involved in it, and then these 5 people are represented on an educational triangle. And in that educational triangle, at the top of the triangle, we have the people or the student, and then at the 2 angles of the triangle down, we have the parents and the teachers. The school and the government make the body of the triangle, and then the society, including the church, is surrounded the triangle. And then with this, I say all of them, the teachers and the parents, they have equal responsibility toward the student. So because many of our parents believe that after paying fees, that is all about the child is in the hands of the teacher. I say no. Most of our children are like this because our parent has refused to take their responsibility. Many of our parents, they don't know when. Many of them don't usually see their children. They say they put on lights in their room and see them lying on the bed. They came back late, they left the house very early, just inform the child that there's 100 francs on. Already teaching the child how to go and buy something. And then I'm saying that if parent can call himself and say that child given to me was given to me by God, and that is my responsibility, not just to bring the child to a certain age, but to bring the child in the fear of God, so that when the child grow up, he will not depart from it. That parent should take their responsibility. You are a child. You have never checked the box of the child. And then with the educational triangle, it is like this. The teacher and the parent, they are the one pushing the triangle up. They are pushing the triangle. As the triangle is going up, that child is going to a good moral standard. They are pushing the child to good future. But if the teacher is the only person pushing the triangle, just believe to me, the triangle will go one side. And then now, if the parent is the only person pushing the triangle, the child would go one side. So it is their responsibility to support the triangle, keep on pushing it up to.
While the government is putting in necessary measures.
While the government and the school, they have their own responsibility. Let me finish with the teacher. The teachers also have something to do. Because those who are misleading our children in school, I don't call them teachers. there are frustrated citizens that they just look into. And then the government coming in now is the government have refused to have abandoned the primary sector. And the primary sector, they are the one pushing this kind of immoral children to the secondary school. The government has abandoned the primary sector in the hands of businessmen and in the hands of frustrated citizens. Those who maybe don't have, they take education, they take teaching as their last target.
All right.
And then the society is there. And then the society here, you believe we mean that from the house to the school, there are many things that usually happens. And then those are the things.
So the society has to play its role.
Have to play their own role.
All right. Thanks so much. We'll have time to get into details as the students and pupils have returned to school today for the third and last term of the current academic year. Thanks, Lapana Tasha Mama, for coming.
You are welcome.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today.
Thank you.